Good evening, I'm Maciej Mikos and you're watching World Talks. Political chaos in Romania deepens after the country's top court decided to postpone its decision on the possible annulment of the first round of presidential elections, which took place last Sunday. As the authorities are recounting the votes, Romanians will rush to polling stations this weekend to choose a new government. And to discuss the current situation in Romania, we're joined by Ștefan Popescu, former State Secretary at the Romanian Foreign Ministry. Good evening.
Good evening, glad to be with you.
Thank you for accepting the invitation. So, how's the last week's vote impacting the upcoming general elections this weekend in Romania?
This is the big question. The Romanian society was not prepared for this result of the first round of the presidential election. Before November 24, we believed that there would be a match between the current Prime Minister Marcel Ciolacu and another candidate, anyone but not Mr. Călin Georgescu, the anti-system candidate. So we are experiencing a shock. The shock is both for those who fear the prospect of an ultra-nationalist president, but also for his voters who feel they can overthrow the game, overthrow the current political system. The shock is also for the institutions of the Romanian state. Are we not facing a scenario similar to that of December 1989, when Moscow got involved through disinformation operation in the change of Ceausescu? Of course, taking advantage of the general dissatisfaction in the country.
But are there any indications, any proof of some foreign agents meddling in Romania's internal affairs?
We are a neighboring country with Russia. The president of Russia is it's very long, 300 years. So the Hungarian Prime Minister Viktor Orban declared today that Romania is a laboratory experiment. This is the big questions. Without a doubt, there were serious mistakes in the electoral campaign of the two major political parties, Liberal and Social Democratic, and the profound discrediting of the political class, a state of deep dissatisfaction in the Romanian society. This state of dissatisfaction was not captured by political parties more interested in electoral strategies, money paying to television, and confident in territorial structures that can mobilize sympathizers and political clientele. But of course, the big question is if Moscow was involved to to a vast hybrid war operation via TikTok and other social networks. Mm-hmm. It's very impossible to for a candidate who was measured to almost 13% to obtain in 1 week double that all the sociological measures.
Maybe it's not the candidate's fault. Maybe it's the public opinion polling station's fault.
Yes, the public opinion. There is another interesting aspect to note. For the first time in 35 years in the change of the communist regime, many Romanian voters have the impression that they truly can strongly sanction the entire political class responsible for the fact that Romania continues to remain the second poorest country in the European Union. So an irrational feeling that makes them deaf to calls to maintain a firm commitment to NATO and the EU.
Will there be a rerun of the first round of the presidential elections?
I don't know. I'm not a specialist, but what I can tell you is that the general controversy only strengthens the ultranationalist candidate. Unfortunately, although we are known for our proximity to France and the French-inspired political system, we do not have the capacity to create a united Republican front to block an anti-system candidate. The parties and the Romanians, the institution, the constitutional court you mentioned, are reacting to the possibility that Mr. Georgescu will access to the supreme office in a dispersed order.
So even if if some wrongdoings are proven to him, he will still be a valid candidate in the second round of
Of course, he will still be a valid candidate. That is correct. Yes, and I think he has more chances because of all these debates dispersed in a dispersed order. Of course. They reinforce him.
All right. So in this regard, what do you make of Marcel Ciolacu's, that's the incumbent Prime Minister? What do you make of his decision to withdraw from the presidential race? He still had a chance to,
I don't know. You know,
become
the
second
politicians, the politicians make a lot of declarations. Let's see first the decision of the Central Electoral Bureau, and then we will see the official reaction not only of Mr. Ciolacu but also of his staff, of the direction of the Social Democratic Party. We are not there.
I see. But in your opinion, who will form the Romania's next government? Will it be the far right, or maybe the centre, or maybe the polling, the public opinion polling stations are getting it all wrong again?
We don't have the tradition to have large coalitions, so I think Romania will cross several months, maybe 1 year or two, of political turbulence. If will be a large coalition, if of Social Democrats, Liberal, the Hungarian minority party, the party of Mrs. Lasconi, but I don't think it will be a very quiet time for Romania. I think every party will try to be in competition with the others, so it will not be easy. But of course, it will be a large coalition. Not far right. Far right, they can obtain almost 40% of the votes.
Right. Well,
but it will be a strong opposition, of course.
I see. In France, for example, there's a thing they call cordon sanitaire, right? It's when the whole opposition unites and rallies its sympathizers, voters, to vote against the possible threat of extremism. But does it work that way in Romania? Can you tell people simply to unite under one banner against the common threat?
Yes, in theory, yes, but this will not exclude the competition between the parties. We don't have the same political tradition of France. France is a mature democracy, and in Romania, we experience only coalitions with 2 parties or 3 parties, but a little one, the Hungarian minority. But if you have 4 political parties and also a general feeling of disappointment in the country, it will be very difficult to run a government.
Right. So, Leslie, I'd like to ask you about the scenario many people are talking about now. Let's say the far right wins both the presidential and the parliamentary elections. So, what awaits Romania then? What awaits Europe then? What awaits NATO then, and consequence Ukraine as well?
There is, however, one aspect that you should not neglect: the anti-Russian sentiment of Romanians. Like Poland, we have a painful history with Russia. We are not, we were not abolished as a state, but we were occupied 12 times by the Russians through our history. So even if in this scenario, I think the Romanians' presence in NATO and the EU is solid.
Romanian presence in NATO and EU is solid, but what about the further help for Ukraine?
It will depend also on the negotiations between US and Russia and other Western powers. Romania will follow, I think, the position of United States.
We've been joined by Ștefan Popescu, former State Secretary at the Romanian Foreign Ministry. Thank you so much for explaining us the current situation in Romania. And that would be all for now. Thank you for watching, and of course, stay with us for much more news and features here on TVP World.